Welcome in to Texans Today, everybody. I am your host, Jeremy Chuggs, and coming up on today's show, I'm going to get into why I don't think Davante Adams is the best idea for the Houston Texans. But Texans fans have been split on this, and this is the main question I want to ask you folks at home today. If you could choose to sign one of these guys, either Davante Adams or Stephon Diggs, who would you choose? Go down in the comments section, make your case on who you would choose to be the Texans wide receiver 2 next to Nico Collins this next season. Before we get into all the Davante Adams talk, a lot of Texans news going on early this morning. First up, from Aaron Wilson, the Texans have restructured Nico Collins' contract, lowering his original salary cap figure from $18.441 million to by $9.8 million, with a conversion of $13.5 million salary and signing bonus prorated per a league source. Collins signed 3 years, $75.69 million last year. So I know that's a lot of word salad mumbo jumbo, but good news for the Texans. They're getting more cap space. They're clearing some cap space. This coming from @TexansCap on Twitter, a really good follow, really detailed stuff. His projection now after the deal after the restructure for Nico Collins, around $18.1 million in projected cap. And this actually came right before the Texans made it official that they are re-signing Ogunbowale, Dare Ogunbowale, the RB3 / special teams ace for this team. Special teams coordinator is going to be ecstatic about this move, bringing back Ogunbowale, 1 year, $2 million deal to keep him in Houston. More news coming in this morning is that Tank Dell is undergoing surgery number 2. Now, he already had surgery. He was fixing the lateral collateral and medial collateral ligament damage around the knee. Now, this surgery number 2, is actually to repair his ACL. So a long road to recovery ahead. Tank, as always, you know our thoughts and prayers are going out to you, man. Hopefully you're feeling better. Good to see you're in high spirits going around, going to U of H games, Rockets games. But from all the reports, it does look like he's going to miss the 2025 season. Really, hopefully, wishing for a speedy recovery and you to get back on that horse and hopefully play for the Houston Texans again one day. Now, I did want to bring up, talking about the Nico Collins restructure, some other restructures that could be had, and shout out to John M. Alexander from the Houston Chronicle. He put out a really good article. I really recommend you go check it out at the Houston Chronicle's website. But the other restructures that he talked about in that article is Danielle Hunter saving around $13.3 million with the restructure. Azeez Al-Shire saving around $5.8 million with the restructure. And I will mention Danielle Hunter restructure / an extension as well could be another way that the Texans could save money. I think it's more popular for the Texans to try to extend Danielle Hunter to keep him in Houston and lower that cap space a little bit. And then Laramie Tunsil, you could restructure his contract. He signed an extension, I believe, last offseason, and a restructure could save around $9.9 million for the Houston Texans. Some other moves, which we've talked about a lot of these moves on the channel before. Cutting Shaq Mason post-June 1st could save around $9.4 million against the cap for the Houston Texans. Danico Autry, a post-June 1st cut for him. Every team is able to designate 2 post-June 1st cuts, so those would be the 2 for the Houston Texans. That could save $8.7 million, even though in John Alexander's article that he wrote for the Chronicle, he did say he thought Danico Autry being released was unlikely. I think it would be a decent move if the Texans are able to replace him with a couple cheaper options, but I digress. He also mentioned Derek Stingley's extension. A lot of people are saying, maybe that'll help against the cap too. He kind of pointed out, and I think it makes a little sense as well, that because Stingley is probably going to be the highest paid corner in the NFL, I don't think that necessarily helps the Texans against the cap with a extension for Stingley, but something to keep an eye out for this offseason because both sides look like they're ready to get a deal done. Bottom line, Nick Caserio can make some moves, can make some wiggle room for the Houston Texans with restructures, with different cuts that can be made. He can clear around $56.9 million in cap space this offseason for the Texans to make some moves, to add some pieces to the roster. And a move that Texans fans are clamoring about And I'm going to be talking about this coming up in just a moment. Davante Adams, released by the New York Jets. Does it make sense for the Texans to go out and sign the veteran wide receiver? According to Underdog, they have the Texans as the second best landing spot for Davante. I don't necessarily agree with this list. I'll tell you why in just a moment. But gotta tell you about our friends over at Fanatics. If you're looking for some Texans gear, they have the brand new secondary logo. They have a bunch of different, styles, sizes, all available with our friends over at Fanatics. All you got to do, go to chatsports.com/Texans hats. All these will be available for you on their website. Do a little window shopping. It's about to be summertime. It's about to be, sunny outside. You're going to need some Texans gear, and why not go check out all the different Texans hats they have over there. A bunch of them are on sale as well, so go check them out one more time, chatsports.com/Texans hats. That's in the comment section and description of today's video. If you want to go check out some hats over with our friends at Fanatics. Now, let's get into the reasons why I don't want Davante Adams for the Houston Texans. First, this isn't really not a reason why I don't want him. Why I don't think he's going to Houston is I think Davante wants to play on the West Coast. It was well reported, and my buddy here at Chat Sports, Mitchell Rins, who covers the Las Vegas Raiders, talked a lot about the reason why Davante wanted to come to Vegas in the first place is that his entire family is on the West Coast. His grandparents are afraid to fly, and it's easier for them to go see his games if he plays on the West Coast. So either California, Vegas, Arizona could be another one, up there in Seattle. Anything on the West Coast is much easier for Davante and his family, and if it was up to him, perfect situation. I think Davante goes back to the West Coast this free agency cycle. Houston, obviously, smack dab in the middle of the country. I don't know if that does it enough for Davante with all of his family being in the West Coast. Number two is he wants to get paid. Davante Adams will want to get paid. He just got released by the New York Jets because they didn't want to pay him, but he still believes his value is that of a top 10, top 15 receiver. And before he was released by the New York Jets, he was number 8 in the NFL in terms of highest paid receivers on a per year basis, making around $28.0 million per year. I don't think he has a drastic change in what he wants his salary to be. I don't think you're going from 28, and I don't think he's going to 10, 12, $13 million a year. I think he still wants around that $20 million a year price tag, and I think that's a little bit too rich, even with all the moves that the Texans can make to save money this offseason. I think that's a little bit too rich for me, in my personal opinion, for Davante Adams. Number 3, he's not a willing blocker. He does not want to get down and dirty at the line of scrimmage. He does not want to block in the run game, and that's going to be a problem in Nick Caley's offense, where he's going to want to get the run game going a little bit more with Joe Mixon, with possibly another running back that the Texans add, maybe even Dameon Pierce, a little, revival of his career this year. That stuff won't happen if Davante Adams is your wide receiver 2, or at least it's going to be a lot tougher. Here's his PFF run blocking grades season over season, and if you recognize one thing, that number's going down. It's at 67.1 in 2020. Not a bad number. But then you look at 2021, 53.9. 2022, 57.1. 2023, 49.4. And 2024, 43.9. That number is continuously going down year after year. And you can, not even just on PFF, you can look at it in the tape. If Davante's not getting the ball, if the play's not for him, he's not interested. He doesn't care about run blocking. And for me, that is a huge problem with the culture that the Texans have built here in Houston with guys like Nico Collins who are all about the team. You don't want a me guy. And that's what Davante is. And that brings me to my last point. He gave up on his team last year. He gave up on the Las Vegas Raiders and forced his way out. A lot of people like to talk about, I mentioned at the top of the show, do you want Stephon Diggs or do you want Davante Adams? A lot of people talk about Stephon Diggs being a locker room problem. Diggs got injured this year and was still on the sidelines. Even though he knew he was going to be a free agent at the end of the year, he was still rooting on his teammates, rooting on his guys on the sideline, even when he didn't have to be there. Davante's not going to do that. If there's trouble in Houston, if the season doesn't start out the way we want it to and Davante's on the team, he's going to throw a hissy fit. He's not going to be happy, and he's going to be a diva. And Texans fans, anybody that complains about Stephon Diggs and his character, you should not want Davante Adams whatsoever. He's arguably, in my opinion, more of a diva than Stephon Diggs. I think Diggs gets a bad reputation, but he was a great locker room fit for all accounts in Houston for how he was able to mentor young guys like Tank Dell, talk with Nico Collins, other guys in the locker room, and just be there as a veteran leader in the locker room. That's not what you're getting with Davante Adams. So these are all the reasons why I just really don't think it makes sense for the Texans to go out and spin big on an old wide receiver like a Davante Adams. Now, with that being said, if it's not an expensive deal and it's a move that CJ Stroud wants, because he's mentioned before in the past, one of the wide receivers that he really likes, and this was from, podcasts that he's been on over the past 2 years, he's been like, yeah, I really like Davante Adams. I think he's a really good receiver, which Stroud's not wrong. I wouldn't hate it entirely if you were able to get it on a cheap deal. I'm just saying it's not a move that I would make. If I was in charge, the Texans would not be signing Davante Adams. But I understand the other side of the argument of why you would want him. I mean, over the past 4 years, dude's been a machine, right? He's been a top 10 receiver in the league. He was getting paid top 10 money for a reason. 2 years of more than 1,500 plus yards in 2021, 2022, and even in a game or even in a season where he played only 14 games for the Raiders and Jets combined, he still had over 1,000 yards, 8 touchdowns on the season. So I get it why people would want Davante Adams. For me, though, I'm going to go in a different direction for the Houston Texans based on culture, based on what this offense wants to do, and based on the Texans' salary cap. Now, that's all I have for you on today's show, folks. Free agency is next week. The craziness is about to begin. We already saw a flurry of news coming in this morning for your Houston Texans, and that's going to continue and even amplify in the coming weeks because free agency news and rumors, signings, they can happen at any moment. And no matter what happens around the league, you know where to go. It's here at Texans Today for the latest Texans news and rumors all year long.